All right, let's get started with this session. This is a workshop on residential landscapes. I'm Ryan Stroop. I'm one of the organizers and hosts for the Water Showcase. I'm going to give you a quiz right off the bat. I love quizzes. How many of the organizing partner organizations can you name without looking at any literature? Please, just any organization that's, please. Yeah, please. That is ACWD. Oh, so Stop Waste. Stop Waste. Then Stop Waste. So Stop Waste is a sponsor. All right. Somebody else can name a Yes, U.S. Green. Hold on. I'm going to repeat these because U.S. Green Building Council, Northern California chapter, or the Northern California U.S. Green Building Council. Not Stop Waste. Stop Waste is a sponsor. No, they are a exhibitor. But you've gotten to the PG&E Energy Center. You're not doing well on my quiz, by the way. East Bay Mud. This woman is doing fantastic. You got 3 out of 6. That's PG&E's been said. San Jose Water. San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. And does anybody know the last one? AIA Committee on the Environment. Collectively, we did it. Fantastic. That actually truncates my announcements. I don't need to mention those organizations because we just did that. So let me bring this up. All right. So people want to know how they get the materials. This is another quiz question. How are you going to get the materials? On the website. When?
2 weeks.
Yeah, probably early April. Not tomorrow, not next week. Be patient in that regard. How are you going to do evaluations for this event? We're going to send out a Survey Monkey. You're a good listener. Survey Monkey will be sent out after the event. And we do want feedback. We love comments on what was successful, what you don't like about the event, and especially suggestions on future session topics. Please provide those. They're really helpful. Winter door prize is going to be drawn. 5:30 where? In the conference center next door, big conference room. All right, we've covered that. You guys are doing pretty well. I think it's passing. How about fire exits for this room? Where do we go? Out the front door. You can also go out the back of the Energy Center. What's our convening location for the Energy Center? The Carousel, which is at what intersection? 4th and Howard Street. Okay, you're doing better. Lunches were provided, but if you still have a lunch, anything biodegradable goes where? In the compost containers. Excellent. And what should we do with your phones? Silence them. Very good. All right. So I think that covers. I'm going to have Melanie come up and introduce our speakers.
Against the wall? Yep. Okay, back to our challenge. Okay, you are my clients. How do you want to use the space? Someone, anybody? Recreation, how? What do you mean by that?
Activity of like playing yard games.
Okay,
Just repeat.
she wants to use the space recreationally, using activity and yard games. Do you have kids?
Yeah.
How old are they?
16 to 7.
16 down to 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be like throwing baseball to practice, or it could be playing croquet.
Okay. Are we talking bocce or just, yeah,
No,
no bocce,
Regular
okay.
croquet.
Okay, so would you like to be out there sitting while the kids do that, maybe in the street, at the edge, or you want them to be in the space you're in?
In the space and sometimes street.
Okay, are you trying to qualify for a rebate?
Yeah.
Do you know why I'm asking that? I don't need to use this. Okay, oh, you're playing my game. Okay, all right. She wants to use the space recreationally. If you're trying to qualify for one of the rebates to get rid of your lawn, you've got to fill it back up 50% with plant material. The other 50% can be permeable. So you can have a decomposed granite area or a flagstone patio area, but it can only take up a portion of it. Okay? All right, so that's how you would like to use the space. Okay, how would you like to use the space?
So,
Ditto?
Dinner.
Dinner. Dinner. You would like to dine out there. Okay, all right.
so for the first suggestion, Kelly, how do you want to manifest that? So what we thought we'd do here is try to represent some of these ideas in this site plan.
Yeah.
Okay? So you had some suggestions, but now how does that manifest itself into the design?
As for the 50% no plants, or
Yeah, we could sort of. We could sort of represent, I mean, this is sort of this big yard area here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could represent that as some sort of combination of ground cover and, I mean, I've looked.
That's
maybe I'm
okay.
looking
That's
for
okay.
Kelly to give me some specifics.
That's okay. How do you feel about your front door? That's your house. Can I find your front door? Or is that always,
side, yeah.
it's on the side?
From the street.
All right, so what do you think about adding a path from the sidewalk up to the front door? Okay.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, she says that would be okay, to add a path to the front door. Okay, I'm going to suggest that rather than running it right up that left-hand side, where in this plan view there is a walkway, but I can't see it in the photo. What if we came in from about 2/3 of the way over on the right-hand side, and we diagonaled up
Like
to
here?
that front porch? Yes.
And do something like that?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And what's your style? Is it neat, tidy, symmetrical, or can we meander? Eclectic. Okay, a little whimsical?
Yeah.
Her style is eclectic and whimsical. All right, so can we meander a path at a diagonal up to that front door?
Be patient.
Is all right? Okay. All right, so what I would suggest to you then is, how about if we have a seating area in the upper right-hand corner, and maybe across from that, catty corner on the other side of the path, we have a little designated area for the kids. So maybe that's a flagstone area, gravel, decomposed granite tracks, and it's mucky in the winter, so that's probably not the hardscape material I'm gonna suggest to you. It would be something a little more than that, a little more substantial than that. So give me a semicircle on the upper right-hand corner near the path, though, and that's where our seating area will be.
Here? Okay. The right shape here.
Who else wants to be my client?
Edible garden.
Oh, okay, she would like some edible space as well.
You want it shaped like this or?
Yes, but flip it so that the flat part is adjacent to the path
I see.
at an angle. There you go. Okay, go down more in the center of that. Yeah, okay, and probably a little bigger for seating. Okay. Somebody else, before I approach edibles, somebody else, do we care about the neighbor next door? The only thing I saw in his photo was his TV antenna, and I don't want to see that. Because I'm going to assume he's got some other stuff over there that we don't want to see. What do you think?
I'd like some birds.
You want some birds? Okay, great. How about a not castle moat wall hedge but something that's a little bit tall and wispy, but it has berries on it for birds in the wintertime. And it also lets us screen against the guy next door so that when we're out there with our kids and our glass of wine and we're having dinner, we're not watching them work on their truck engine. Is that all right? Okay. All right.
What is it?
All right. That's okay. All right, so some screening shrubs loosely affixed to the right-hand side against the property line.
This side or this side?
Other side, yeah. Probably give us like 6 foot wide, roughly. All right. There is a gate there, but let's say that we don't go through there. For today's purposes, we don't go through there.
Last suggestion, Kelly, we have to move on.
Okay. One more thing. All right, so we've given us our privacy. We've got entry. How about a ceiling? How about a tree space overhead, or what about a little overhead structure over the dining area? Does that work for you guys? Okay. Overhead structure over the seating area, sure. Edibles. One more question from my crowd. Is your neighborhood where people will walk by and help themselves to your stuff, or is your neighborhood where they will leave it alone unless you offer it to them? Somebody, anybody? Leave it alone. They're going to leave it alone. Okay, good. All right. So maybe we could flank with a couple of rectangles, one linear to the old walkway and one catty-cornered against the sidewalk, so kind of an L shape with edible beds. Let's make those 4 by 8.
You mean in here?
Yep, and another one that runs parallel to the sidewalk. Okay, so there's our edible beds. The neighbors are not going to mess with it. And then that gives us another bit of protection where the kids play on the inside of that edible area. Okay, I think my time is up.
We have to wrap, yeah. So we'll continue to talk about this, but we need to transition to the next speakers.
Okay.
And I'm going to save that and then have Kristen come up.
Kristen.
Can everyone hear? Yeah? Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. All right. So my name is Kristen. I'm the Horticulture Outreach Manager for California Native Plant Society. Does everyone in here know who we are? Few hands, yeah. Okay, we're a statewide nonprofit organization. We have 35 chapters throughout the state and around 10,000 members. And at CNPS, we really do believe that our built landscapes have a huge impact on our life and on the world in general. And California is special. We're an incredibly important place with more native plant species than any other state in the nation. And our landscapes can either help or harm this precious diversity that we enjoy. And in fact, California is a biodiversity hotspot. A third of our plants are found nowhere else in the world. And another fun fact is that California has more rare plants than most countries have plants total. So California is a pretty incredible place. To be a biodiversity hotspot, you have to have already lost 70% of your native habitat. So it's a little bit of a scary statistic, and it just shows that what we do here in California really does matter. It matters to the whole world. And at the basis of that are native plants. Native plants are the foundation of our ecosystems. They're the basis of our food webs upon which all life depends. And take insects, for example. 90% of herbivorous insects can only eat the plants with which they've co-evolved. We recently had a noted ecologist, Doug Tallamy. He's the author of a fantastic book. If you guys have pen and paper, I'd write it down. It's called Bringing Nature Home. And he shared with us at our conservation conference last year over 2 decades worth of research that showed that native plants are clearly the foundation for insects and the birds that eat the insects and all the other creatures as we go up the food chain. So basically, Doug wants us to know that without insects, none of us survive. And we really need to be paying attention to what we're doing with our food webs. We need to be in the business of creating living landscapes. So this is kind of fun. This is what we see when we look at our yards, right? We see plants, we see shrubs, trees, we think of plant names and flower color and bloom time. But this is what a bird sees. They see food, they see foraging hubs, right? And we're not fooling the birds when we fail to plant their food in their foraging hubs. We get the question a lot, can I plant, non-native plants? I see bees all over lavender and lantana and things like that. Absolutely, native pollinators, they can nectar on those plants, but they can't raise their young there. Native plants are the larval food for the majority of insects and birds and everything, so they need native plants to survive. So what we plant matters, and all of us in this room have the ability to play a vital role in this ecosystem. And we see that we have a new criteria for choosing landscapes. Kelly did a great job of talking about screening and focal points and anchors and things like that, but we have to balance it with these other aspects, food web value and watershed and pollinator habitat. And the good thing is California natives can solve a lot of our problems. The city of Santa Monica did a 9-year study in which they compared a traditional turf-dominated landscape with a 100% California native landscape. And they found that the native landscape used 83% less water, produced 56% less green waste, and created 68% less maintenance. So it really does show that when native plant gardens are properly planned and cared for, we can really achieve some amazing savings out of them. And the great thing too, with California, we have nearly 6,500 native plants. So with that many plants, we really have an endless variety that we can use to create any design aesthetic in California, whether it's Mediterranean or contemporary. We really have a ton of options when it comes to design and style. But how do we choose plants? How do we go about selecting plants for a location? How do we even know what a native plant is? Do many of us here know what native plants are? Yeah? Okay, a good amount. Well, let's play a game. So can I have everyone stand up, please? Alrighty, I do have a prize for you at the end, so. All right. Okay, so which one is native? If you think the purple sage is native, raise your hand. All right. How about Lady Gaga? Who thinks Lady Gaga is from California? All right, if you think Lady Gaga is from California, you can sit down. She is actually from New York. The purple sage, Salvia leucophylla, is native here to California. All right, how about this? Blue rose echeveria and Sierra Nevada beer. If you think the blue rose echeveria is native, raise your hand. All right, and Sierra Nevada? All right, blue rose echeveria, you can sit down. Those plants are not native to California. They are native to Mexico, Central America, and parts of South America. And Sierra Nevada's in Chico. How about this? The Western azalea or Johnny Cash? Which one's a California native? Western azalea. Okay, good. How about Johnny Cash? Nobody? If you think Johnny Cash, you can sit down. He is from Arkansas. We do have a species of azalea here in California. It's the Western azalea. All right, how about this one? Salvia microphylla, small leaf sage, and Katy Perry. So who thinks the sage is native to California? Okay. How about Katy Perry? Okay, so whoever said salvia can sit down. Yeah, this one's a stumper. So this is a species that's native to a large part of the southwestern United States, but not specifically to California. Katy Perry's from Santa Barbara. Okay, so here's some tiebreakers. We have a lot here, so we might have a couple winners. So keep standing if you have visited a super bloom site, either in 2017 or maybe this year. No, not yet. All right. All right, you encouraged a customer to buy or install a California native plant this year. No, sorry. Yeah, that works. If you installed a native plant, you can stay standing if you were standing. Okay, you have at least one native plant growing in your yard. Okay. You have eaten a native plant. Yeah? Not sure? Okay.
You have to list the plant you've eaten.
I'm a moderator. I'm going to sit down.
Okay. There you go. So wait, we have 2 people standing? Okay. Does anyone, so do either of you know the relatively new Latin name for California aster? Yeah. No. I'm trying to remember if I even remember now because it just recently changed. That's okay. At this point, you're the last one standing. So the 2 of you, I have, yes, I have a prize for both of you.
Nicely done, but that was fun.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So I hope I remember it correctly now. So it used to be, yeah, we'll look it up. It used to Corythrogony, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot to look. Because it used to, or is it Sympheo? It changed. Yes, I think. Yeah. Anyway, it's a tough one, so you guys both deserve that. And the last one was, have you seen a vernal pool in person? So, all right. So, an easier way than just guessing, right, is to go to calscape.org. So calscape.org is our online plant database. There's a ton of ways to use this and a ton of great resources in here. And we're really, we're looking at ways to enhance this. So if you guys ever have ideas or, things that you wish you could see changed, we're totally open to that. But I want to go through some of the tools and resources in here. So to start with, on Calscape, what you can do is enter any address to learn what plants are native to that actual location. You can then see detailed plant profiles and characteristics. There's thousands of photographs, good gardening information, and also nursery availability of all the plants on here. So there's 2 places where you can search. In the upper right corner is where you can search either by botanical name or by common name. And then in the lower bar is where you can enter an address, and it can be as specific as you want. It can be the actual street address. It can be just a zip code, just a city. All of that will work. And then you'll see I actually did a search for where we are today at the PG&E Center, and it comes up with 652 plants native to this location. And then you can filter. So you can filter by plant type. Down here in the bottom right, there is both a very low water and also a very easy. And the very easy is what I recommend most people to go to. Those are going to be the plants that are easiest to garden with and most commonly available. There's also detailed plant profiles in here, tons and tons of information. It goes on way below what you see on the screen. And then there's also a really great feature in here. You can create your own plant lists. So if you create an account on Calscape, it's really simple. You just enter in an email and password, and then you can have multiple plant lists in here and add plants as you're looking through them, and actually print them out too. There's options to print them out. And then last but not least, there's a nurseries page where you can zoom in and find a nursery that's near your location. It's organized alphabetically. And when you go to the nursery listing, you can click on the plant list there, and that's their inventory of native plants. So it's a really useful way to find native plants that are near you. We hear that's always a common problem is availability and actually accessing native plants, so this is a helpful tool for that. So why does planting locally matter? Why should we be using Calscape? Why is Calscape why is finding what's actually native to your location important and helpful to you? Unfortunately, the picture didn't show on this for some reason, but the points are still very valid. So locally native plants are going to be the best performers in a garden. They're adapted to the local climate conditions. They're adapted to the average annual rainfall for that location, to the sun, the temperature, the wind, all those things. And they're also going to be the best food for habitat and for local wildlife. So when you're looking to create, we hear a lot that native plant gardens are difficult, or native plants die, or I've had problems with them. And a lot of times it's because people aren't planting natives that are actually native to that location. California is incredibly diverse. We have, tons of plant communities and microclimates. So it really does matter what plants you're planting where, and it's going to have a big impact on your success with a native plants garden. And this is a really awesome story. So in Florida, there is this butterfly called the Atala butterfly. This plant shown here is called Kunti. It was completely eliminated from the wild in the 1900s, early 1900s, by the starch industry. Well, soon after that, the Atala butterfly disappeared. And they actually tried to go find it. They went on some really intense searches. They were going to list it as endangered. They ended up having to listing it as extinct because they couldn't find any. Well, then recently, landscapers and homeowners found this plant and realized, hey, this is a really great plant. It's low growing, it's evergreen, it handles the sandy soils we have here in Florida. Let's start planting it. And they started planting it all over in their communities. It just became one of those kind of hardy, tried and true plants that they were including in their built landscapes. Well, guess who came back when they started planting this plant? Essentially, homeowners accidentally saved the Atala butterfly from extinction just by planting this plant in their residential urban landscapes. They didn't have to do any special, outreach. They didn't have to do any special projects or anything. Just by planting natives in their built landscapes, they were able to save this species from extinction. So it really shows how important our residential and commercial landscapes are. They're extremely powerful conservation tools. So with that, yeah. Any questions at the moment? I think we're going to hold questions till the end. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'll pass it over to John.
Awesome. Let's make sure this works. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. Okay. Oh, before I start, I'm going to set the timer. I'm not tweeting or anything like that. I'm just notorious for going over, so we're gonna go for it. Okay, there's my 15 minutes. All right, so my name is John Camp. I'm a landscape and urban designer, and I started my business in 2008, actually. So this is Prairie Farm right here. That's my card, my logo. What I'm going to be talking about is irrigation and water and irrigation-free landscapes. So this is on a lot of people's minds. Water, obviously, we live in California. It's a hot topic. So I'm going to give you a little background about how I came to this. So this is the first landscape I did in 2008 in Minnesota. Before that, I had been living in Mexico, actually. Before that, I'd been a city planner and urban designer for the city of Los Angeles. And before that, school at UCLA. I came to this work mainly because I wanted to be outside more. I was sitting at a desk and I was rubber stamping things as a city planner, and it was incredibly boring. So I decided when I was in Mexico that I was going to move back to Minnesota and start to make a go of it. And this was right before the recession, so it was a perfect time to be starting a business. Anyway, so this is the first landscape I did, and this is what it ended up looking like. And the plants in this landscape were advertised as drought tolerant. And these are drought tolerant plants. And actually one of these plants, even though this is in Minnesota, one of these plants is actually, I'm going to use this, as Ryan told me. This is Perovskia. This is a Russian sage. So you can grow that here, actually. But what I was noticing even at this time is that we were getting drier summers. We were actually getting summers that were more like Mediterranean summers. So we were getting a month, 2 months of basically no rain. And so we were watering this landscape way too much. This is a rain garden I did. So rain gardens were really fashionable at the time. So this is directing water towards the landscape, rainwater runoff from the site. What was happening was that we weren't getting the rain, and then the contractors were actually having to install irrigation systems into rain gardens after they had been installed. Luckily, that wasn't the case for this one, so I guess mine worked. I went back to Los Angeles, and I started doing landscapes there, and things were getting drier there. People are living in smaller spaces, so this is a container landscape. Not all of us have lawns or yards, so I do think it's really important that this be part of the discussion. So folks who don't have yards need to have options for how to do a wildlife-friendly water landscape. So what was happening was I was seeing two types of landscapes. One was advertised as drought tolerant at the top, has a look of being drought tolerant, but if this were to go off of irrigation for a month, it would be dead. And then at the bottom, this is similar to the one that Kelly showed, this sort of sad, scrubby, I don't know, you're supposed to buy into this aesthetic, I'm a good person. You should like this. I'm not using a lot of water, right? Anyways, then finally, people said, well, you can't do irrigation free. That's impossible. And if anyone says that to me, I'm like, I'm going to make sure I can make it possible. So I went back to Minnesota, and after a lot of cold calls, a lot of pitching this idea, a lot of people saying I was crazy, I did find funding from Longfellow Community Council, and then we went in on a grant to get money to do a pilot landscape. This is the landscape. So I monitored 203 plants in the landscape for an entire year for water consumption. So I had graphs, I had charts, I had a clipboard, all looked very official. And that's what I did for an entire year. This is what it was supposed to look like. This is the rendering. And I'd use a set of techniques, and I'm going to talk about those, so that's where we're going to get to. Those are relevant for you guys. Different planting techniques. Yes, the plants themselves, but planting and watering techniques to make sure these plants could really get established and eventually survive on their own. This is the site cleared. This is just a basic site. We solicited applications for this. We picked a homeowner. They're really cool people. I'm still in touch with them. I'm actually going to go back to this landscape this summer and do a little revisit. But we picked this as well because it's on a corner lot. So we wanted this to be publicly accessible so that people could learn from it. This is us in the process. This is basically me in the process of doing this. So you notice the plants are planted sunken in these watering basins. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But that was a key component of this. And then this is the landscape at the end of the summer. Most of these plants haven't been watered for 3 months at this point. So we had an intensely dry, intensely hot summer. So this shows the number of plants watered. So you can see there's a big spike at the beginning where we planted the plants and they were watered. And we really didn't need to water a lot of the plants. And this is actually the hottest summer on record in Minneapolis. I don't like that that's happening. I wish that wasn't happening, but this is me kind of trying to make lemonade out of lemons here. And then it got particularly dry, basically like a California style September, and so we had to water some plants at the end. This is the rainfall, so you can see how there was a huge spike and then it went down. This was rainfall recorded on site, so not just in Minneapolis, but on site. We did a interpretive sign, so this is what people could learn from it when they walk by. And we did a training, and there I am. Who cares? I did this in Minnesota, who cares? Everything I've done since then is built off of what I learned from that landscape. I learned so much from that. This is a landscape I did in the Presidio. This is exploring the idea of only using plants that are already growing in a site. So this is an abandoned playground. And so what I did is construct a series of, this was actually muslin that I used to frame the existing plants to really give them validity and give a space validity that people would normally just overlook. And this is the landscape I'm working on right now. This is actually the site that Kelly used, and so this is the design that we're most likely going with. So this might look familiar to you. This is the project I'm working on in Southern California, and this is most likely going to be irrigation free. We were thinking it was going to have irrigation, and then we were going to basically turn it off eventually, but I think they're going for irrigation free. We'll see. That's me. So I do give talks and lectures. This is at the University of East London. I'm wearing the exact same outfit, and that was not... totally not planned. On this note, we are giving another workshop that's going to be on front yard specifically. That's going to be on April 20th, and there's going to be a model building component to that. So if you want to come, that's going to be in South Berkeley. And so find me afterwards, and I'll tell you about that. Okay, so this is what I get all the time. Irrigation free is impossible. So what I want to do is show you how it is possible and why it's possible. So this is the landscape that I did after, this is the second growing season. And so most of those plants have not been watered they've not gotten supplemental irrigation for a year and a half. So I'm going to just go through a series of techniques and let me make sure. I love how I set this and then put it like 5 miles away from where I am. Okay, so the reality is that there are plants growing all around us that aren't using irrigation. This is a plant that's really common in the Bay Area. You see this all over. Irrigated to the hilt, Coleonema. Sunset gold, and here it is growing without irrigation. It's from a summer dry climate in South Africa. A lot of people don't know this. Calla lilies, the drip irrigation right there doesn't work, so just in case you guys are going to be like, what's that? Calla lilies, irrigation free. Say what you want about verbascums. I think it's pretty incredible. This was in September, hadn't rained for 4 or 5 months. Here's this thing about the flower, horrible conditions in an alleyway. You've got to give that thing props for being able to flower after all that time in the rain. This is a salvia, so this is a kitchen sage, a bear garden. So I am launching an initiative. I don't have all the details ironed out, but they will be ironed out by the event on the 20th. It's an adopted Mediterranean plant initiative, so you will be able to take a plant and take it home and monitor it for a year. That's going to be the agreement. So you'll get a free plant. There'll be some strings attached. So this is the first one I did here, actually. Coming out of summer, winter dormancy, so it's it looks a little, but it was incredible to see how little water this needed for the first summer. Incredible. This is Salvia mellifera, so native plant, irrigation free. How is this possible? Well, because we've got these Mediterranean climate zones all over the world. We're in one, and these places experience 1 to over 6 months of no rainfall. That's just the reality. So they've adapted. These plants have adapted to this. They've adapted with their roots, with their leaves. Cam photosynthesis, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you guys know about this, but a lot of succulents, they photosynthesize halfway and then they complete it. So because when plants photosynthesize, they lose water. So they do this at night and then they complete the rest of it during the day. It's pretty awesome. Winter leaves and summer leaves. So this is actually the same plant that Kristen had in her presentation, Salvia leucophylla. So it has winter leaves that are bigger, and then it sheds those, and it has these smaller summer leaves that prevent evapotranspiration. And then shape. So these are Mediterranean plants on the left-hand side. You notice that they hug the ground. So if anyone's seen, I had to make this way shorter, so I did have photos of lavender that are kind of growing like this. But the normal shape of a lavender plant is not this. It's actually down here. And that is to minimize surface area so that they reduce water loss. And then these are aloes here. Their leaves are curled so that they catch rainwater, and the rainwater goes down to where they are. Anyways, so they need this dry period. It's not a question of them tolerating this dry period, it's that they need this dry period. So what I like to do is separate out drought tolerant from summer dry needing. So the one on the left, Senecio, Madroscape, very good plant, very much drought tolerant. Can handle drought, but it likes a little bit more water. Whereas this one on the right-hand side, Salvia biana, it needs, after the first summer of you getting it up to speed and ready for that second summer, it's not going to want water, otherwise it will die. 5 minutes, got it. So anyways, long story short, plants need their beauty sleep too, okay? So it's not realistic for us to expect a plant to perform for the entire year. They need to have a time period where they slow down. So if there's one thing that you take away from this presentation, one thing, it's this principle of deep roots. You want to make sure that your plants in an irrigation-free landscape or drought-tolerant landscape are able to send their roots down as deeply as possible. This shows root growth according to irrigation type. Now, roots are fundamentally lazy if given the opportunity, just like people. So if you irrigate, surface irrigate a plant, this is the root system that they're going to grow. So if the irrigation system goes off, if there's a drought, they're going to be super susceptible. Drip, which is very popular, that's what happens, is that the roots hug where the drip comes out, and then you've got this, which is the basin technique. So if you plant the plants in a basin and water them that way, you're going to encourage the roots to go way, way down to find that water. So this is the key component of the irrigation-free landscape, and I'm not going to get through this whole presentation. Like I said, we're going to have another talk on April 20th, but if you only do one thing to make your landscape more drought-proof, it is this. Now, when I did this, people thought I was insane. There was a landscape designer doing the landscape next door. This is in Minnesota, so she was very polite about telling me that she thought I was nuts. She said, "Don't you think that you should?" Well, no, I don't think. And this is a precedent. So this is 300 years old. This is in Cordoba in Spain. This has been done for ages, so it's not like this is unheard of. Okay. Furrow irrigation, this is in West Africa, same concept, okay? Now, some people are like, well, I don't want craters in my landscape. I don't want a bunch of gopher holes. Well, so this is the spring afterwards. You notice the plants are gonna grow, they're gonna fill in, and you're really not gonna see those basins after a while, okay? So it's not really too big a deal. All right, so here's a question for you, a little interactive. When do we not use the basin technique, or when would we make the basin super shallow if we were going to use it? So A, when we're planting trees, B, or 2, when the plant has small leaves but a deep root system, when the plant has a shallow root system and mainly stores water in its leaves, or 4, when the plant has a taproot. Okay, well, let's go through it. So who says 1? You say trees. Okay, who says 2? 3? 4? All right. Okay, it's 3 actually. You can do watery basins with a taproot. You just make sure you have good drainage and don't damage the taproot. But that's going to be true for any plant that you plant that has a taproot. Don't damage it when you're planting it. Trees, no probs. You can do trees, no probs. So there they are, right there. Okay. So sedums are a good example of this. Okay. Succulent leaves with shallow root systems. They will get overwhelmed by this. They'll get too much water. They won't know what to do with it, and then they'll start rotting. Okay. How are we doing on time here? 2 minutes. All right, good. The next thing is to space it out. Okay, so when you water a plant, you want to space that watering out. A plant in a nursery setting, down here in this photo, is going to be watered, or will have been watered once a day, twice a day. It depends. So even a drought-tolerant plant is going to have been watered a ton. So it's going to be used to that. It's basically addicted to water. It's a drug addict. So you're going to have to put them through a little rehab. And you're going to do the water deeply and frequently. Now, we hear this all the time, water deeply and frequently. But if you plant the plant flush to the ground, it's a big pain in the butt to do that, actually, because the water runs away from the plant. But when you do it this way, so water it, wait, water it again, the water is going to go down and pull the roots down. Okay? So this gives you a sense of frequency. So we've looked at this before, but you're going to water the plant initially, water it maybe a few days later if needed. And for perennials and subshrubs, don't water the plant until you see some sort of signs of drought stress. All right? So even if you feel bad for it, you're like, oh God, I haven't watered you in so long. I feel so bad for you. Don't do it, okay? Resist that emotion, right? I'm glad you feel bad for it, but let it be. It's cool. It's like, I've got this. I can do this, okay? All right, so final question, and then we'll probably have to stop, I'm guessing. Okay, how far apart should I space the waterings out that first year? 10 days, only when the plant shows signs of stress. 5 days, 7 days. I kind of gave this question away. What's that? No, just initially. Yeah. Anyone? Sorry, so 1, let's see, does anyone say 1? You say 4? You say 1? Anyone else?
I say 2. It looks like it's easy.
Yeah. Okay, 2. Don't do this for trees. Don't do this for large shrubs. So trees are a different story. You don't want to get to the point where a tree is stressed. But yeah, that's what you're going to want to do. Okay, so resist the urge to be like, oh God, it's so dry, you must be miserable. Okay?
But you say a tree is different.
Yes, trees are different. We don't have time for that, but yeah. Okay, we're going to stop there. Yeah, okay.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
So, we want to leave ample time for questions. I'm going to ask all of our panelists because it's easier for them to see you over there at the table. And we'll bring up the room lights if the 3 of you could sit there. And then 2 of you have podium mics, which I'm going to ask you to share with Kelly, because this mic I will use for your questions. Who would like to start us off? All right. Short questions. We get lots of people.
I want to thank the panel here. I think I understand what he meant by trees. You water deeply and then let it dry out between waterings. That's it. Let it dry out between waterings.
You want to comment on that, John?
Yeah, so trees are a little bit trickier. It's going to depend on the type of tree. It's going to depend on what climate it's coming from. Does it grow in a wash? That kind of thing. So what I would do is, when you're going to plant a tree, figure out where it's from first, what kinds of conditions it likes, and then try to mimic those. Any plant, regardless, is going to have a period where it's going to need to be established, even one that's summer dry, right? So for that first summer, you're still going to have to water summer dry plants. Yeah.
Thank you to all 3. Question to you, John. Have you had any application with this in commercial settings? I mean, obviously plants can be in commercial or residential, but using your research, have you been able to sell it to a commercial client or a commercial landscaper? Thank you.
No, not yet. But if you know of someone who's ready and willing, tell me. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in general, what I like to do is demonstration landscapes, because then people can take bits and pieces of them, whatever they think is relevant, and run with them. But yeah, it would be a good challenge for sure to do that. Yeah.
Quick question about root depth. It's very hard to find that information on websites. Does the CalScape website have that, or does someone else show that, both for drought tolerance as well as erosion control?
That's a great question. That actually came up in an earlier talk. Someone was asking something similar, I think. I need to check. There is a ton of data in CalScape on all the plants. And some of it has, some of the plants have all of the data, some it's missing, or we just don't have enough to list it. But take a look on CalScape, because there probably is information about that. It gets really detailed down to like humidity and things like that. So.
Other questions? I was going to ask Kelly, what are your clients asking for? Are they asking for drought tolerant? Are they asking for irrigation free? Are they asking for purely an aesthetic treatment? What are you getting from your clients?
I'm pretty well known in the East Bay for low water. So when I've gotten comfortable enough and old enough that when somebody calls me and says, we want lawn here and we want lawn there, I say, I'm not your person. So people who come to me are looking for low water. They're not necessarily looking for natives. People have you don't know natives very well. You have a picture in your mind of, oh, natives are dry and they don't have any color and that sort of thing. So sometimes I have to sell the idea of natives, and if I can't sell the idea of natives, I sneak them in anyway, because there are some really great ones that have fall color, that have a winter bloom when everything else is taking a break, like manzanita, for instance. So people know what they are getting usually when they call me, but there's still education that goes. A lot of times people ask for low maintenance, and they've heard that natives are low maintenance. So, and I say, well, what does that mean? What does that mean to you exactly? Because you're still going to have to do something to those plants occasionally. Maybe not every plant, but there are going to be some plants out there that are going to require some care from time to time.
No, I just want to remind folks, we kind of hope these workshop sessions, people would ask like your landscape specific questions. So think about that. You have 3 experts here who can help.
Hi, thank you so much for doing what you do as well as presenting here. I have a question on finding a good resource or for information on how to build a rain garden that's seasonal for controlling storm water that would be appropriate to specific areas like CalScape does. But how to build it and how to plant it.
Okay. So actually, Minnesota's done a lot more with rain gardens than, at least from what I've experienced in California. I've lived here for 11 years. Mississippi Watershed Management District has a lot of information about calculating how much water is going to come off your site, or how much water it's capturing, and then what you'll need to do on your site to prep it so that it can capture that water and make sure that it filters down into the soil. See, one of the problems is that you can have ponding or pooling. So they have different formulas and things on their website that you can go to. So it's MWMO, Mississippi Watershed Management Organization, and they it's a good place to start, and then you can, at least from my end, and then you can adapt it to California in terms of plants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of the water agencies are really focusing on, swales and rain gardens and kind of what we term the watershed approach to landscaping. So definitely check in with your local agency, water agency or city. They probably have some resources very similar to what he has.
I would be looking for landscape designers out of both Oregon and Washington. I've been on some design tours up there where one day we spent the whole day looking at rain gardens, whole neighborhoods that were completely planned for everything to filter properly. And in terms of plants, In the back of some of the native plant books, the one by Carol Bornstein, for instance, there is a list of things that can tolerate short-term flooding. You can also Google that, and stuff comes up that can sit in wet soil for 2 or 3 days before it dries out.
The next question is here, and then I'll come to the mic there next, okay?
So, is there a list somewhere, or should I just Google this, native plants that gophers don't like?
Yes, but the gophers do not read them.
Yeah.
Along with the deer, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't think I have anything specific. I know on our, specific to gophers, I know on our website, speaking about deer, we actually do have a couple articles that some of our experts from our chapters, who've been gardening with natives for decades, have some really great articles they've written on there about, gardening in deer country and kind of what plants and how to do it to avoid that. So, right, yeah, it's.
Deers are the major things that gophers,
Yeah.
A rat thing, okay. Well, I was going to say before the rat thing, I've had a lot of experience with both deer and rabbits. And
It's a little farther away, John.
farther.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Deer and rabbits. So the general rule of thumb that I've found is that if you have a spicy plant, so it has spicy oils in it, salvias, for example, are a good example. Those are things that rabbits and deer, unless they're like, really in a jam, they're probably not going to eat. So I always err on that side of things. So like actually over time with my landscapes, they've gotten spicier, quote unquote, because yeah. So.
There's a question here.
Oh, hi. I'm Nicole Freitas with Contra Costa Water District, and I don't actually have a question, but I wanted to follow up on the rain gardens and let you know that on our website at ccwater.com, we have a list of resources and information about rain gardens. So you might want to check that out, ccwater.com.
I wanted to know, I'm in local San Franciscan. For small, shady backyards, a lot of the San Francisco-specific natives aren't necessarily going to work because they're more sunlight or dune-related. Do you have other recommendations that also have some of the same, like just near regional or like, because I know their microclimates here are somewhat extreme. Is it better to just skip a couple districts over, like counties over for what we're looking for, or?
Yeah, actually in CalScape there is a search and a filter for that. So if you go into the advanced search, there is a section for choosing, kind of the sun exposure, even the soil type, even like what pollinators you want to attract, all that kind of stuff. So that should help you really narrow down, exactly what would work in that location as far as natives go. So, yeah.
And I would say if you've been to the UC Berkeley Botanical Garden and looked at the natives there, or Tilden, you could see what things are growing in the shade there, and that's going to be similar to what you're going to be able to get away with. Alternatively, you have some things that can be in full sun in San Francisco that in my garden out in the Far East Bay have to be in morning sun only. So just because a book says full sun, that's not always the case. So stick with the CalScape, your address, and go by that, and then look for climates nearby. I would also give a pitch for the Native Garden Tour, which is the first Sunday in May. You can visit gardens in Alameda and Contra Costa County. So go to gardens that have a climate like yours and look and see what's working in those gardens and what's not working. Sometimes plants die. Don't take it personal.
Yeah, it's a learning experience.
Hi. The first project where you drew out, is that an actual project you did? Can we see?
That's his project.
That's what actually, it was interesting to see you guys go through this because that's actually a project that I'm doing with the client. So it was interesting to see what you guys wanted versus what the client wants. So we saw a glimmer of it during my presentation of what it's actually going to be. I don't know if you remember it, but it's much more rectilinear. And I was going to get into talking about swales and berms because that's how we're going to do it. So it's actually going to go, if you look at it in section, it's going to go, because it slopes toward the house, and that's not very apparent in the drawing, but it's going to go like this, essentially, down towards the house and then slope away from the house. We do a little regrading of the site.
Is that hasn't finished yet?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
in the process.
Just want to see the results, how
It's
it is.
Yeah, it's been slowed down. So my client's father passed away, so it's been slowed down for sure, obviously because of that. So it's in the phase that you saw it in is where it is right now.
Since two of you are very great designers, can I ask a little bit how you choose plants when you plan out gardens like that? What are some of the principles you go with?
5 minutes or less, right?
Sure. I ask all those questions to my client every time. How are you going to use it? What do you like? What do you not? Sometimes people show me photos of things they don't like. That's really helpful for me. Because I specialize in low water, I'm not looking for azaleas and camellias and rhododendrons and roses unless the client says, can I just have some roses on the edge? I also think that, and I try to say this, number one, I get paid to tell the truth. So if you tell me I want this and I know that plant is doomed, I'm going to tell you that plant is doomed. I always say I could never own a nursery because I would interview every person and make them go through like a waiting period before I decided if I would let them buy the plant because I don't want the plant to be doomed. So second, I'm doing what I want at my house. So if you tell me I want a rose garden, I'm not going to say you can't have a rose garden. You can have a rose garden. Okay, beyond that, I'm looking for good bones. I want plants that give me something besides a pretty flower bloom. I love flowers and I like working in my garden, but not everybody feels that way. So I'm looking for plants with interesting foliage, interesting bark, interesting texture. And to me, the flower that's just a bonus. But with the flower often comes additional maintenance, and that's not always realistic for people. If you tell me I am never going to touch this plant and I know that plant needs to be deadheaded twice a year, it's going to look terrible, I'm not going to pick that one for you. I'm going to pick some others. The other thing to remember, last but not least, there are 10 ways, maybe 20, for a garden to turn out well. So we could go, that's why I was not afraid to do that little quickie sketch with you, because we could have done it completely differently. You saw it completely different, what he's actually doing. There's lots of ways for it to be great without lawn.
The other thing I'll say about plants, and take photos of the plants that you see around that you like. And there are some good plant identification apps that you can use. I'm a total nerd, so I'll spend a lot of time on Google trying to find out what this plant is. But then eventually you probably find them, and then the best thing to do from there is find out what kinds of conditions they're from. So whether they be from California or from another Mediterranean climate, or you're gonna find out that a lot of them aren't from Mediterranean climates. So find out that, and then that's, in my case, that's a good way where I'll nix certain plants. I'll be like, oh, this is actually a summer wet plant, because there are arid environments in the world that are actually summer rainfall and winter dry. So that's a good way to nix plants out. And then the other thing too is just books, so just like you on your own, thinking about your own garden, just find books that you like and just start pouring through them. Availability is a huge issue though, so you're going to find a lot of plants probably that you like, that you might see in books, but then you go to the nursery and you might not find all.
Yeah.
I don't know if you
No, I think you guys said pretty much everything, yeah.
Melanie has a question.
I have a question. I recently adopted a little dog, and I believe there's more dogs in San Francisco than children now. So I have a request and also a question. Request is Calscape is, that's what it's called, right? Yes. Is awesome. And I've been on the website before and searched through it, but now I'm searching through looking for dog-safe plants. So I'd love if that was in the advanced search.
That's
I think other people would use that too. And then the question to maybe all three of you is, when you do have clients that have dogs and they want a pretty garden, what are some of the plants that come to mind? This is where you're helping me, so I'm taking notes.
If I can sell you on ornamental grasses, those are fabulous because they can take the brunt of a dog running up against them, or maybe down the line a kid kicking a soccer ball into it and not shattering the plant into 1,000 pieces. So I love ornamental grasses. Succulents, probably not for you in this case, all right? And then you're gonna wanna stay away from things that are brittle, so sages, lavender, things that where if the dog bumps into it, half the plant is going to drop off. You've waited 2 years for it to become full size and then it's gone. So those are the things I'm looking for: soft texture, soft shrubs, that sort of thing.
And lavender is one of the ones that are toxic to dogs. So
It's not well, I actually don't even know that it's toxic to dogs, but it's brittle. You can
one thing
eat
I
it,
read
you
online,
can
I think
eat it,
we
you
need
can
an
put it in
expert, but
salads
yeah.
and things like that, so I'm not sure that it's toxic to dogs. But you may be right. I don't know that for sure.
on some website that
Let me get a sense of how many outstanding questions we have, so I know at one point you had a second question. No, actually. It was asked? Great, so I think we're at a wrap-up moment. I want you to again thank our speakers, please. I'm sure they'll stick around if you have questions. We do have one last educational session left in the 3 rooms. The Water Conservation Awards will be next door. This room will have a session on rainwater harvesting. And then upstairs is the Energy Water Nexus, which is a topic we always like to address at the showcase. And then at 5:30, what's going to happen? Your last quiz question? Door prize drawing next door. Thanks for coming today.
And I have plants too. If anyone wants to take a plant home, just come find me.